My name is Nick Floyd. I have a long history with Magic the Gathering. I created the Dandan variant. Now I'm creating this. Welcome to Magic Storytime. Today's trivia question is, in previous videos I've mentioned how pre-releases were very different in the early years of Magic. They were large regional events, not smallish tournaments at the local game store. Also, there were no pre-release stamped cards for early pre-releases. When they did start offering pre-release cards as incentives for attending, it was a rare from the set and foil stamp with pre-release, but they were not foil cards. Foil Magic cards did not exist until it had to compete with Pokemon, which was first published in America by Wizards of the Coast. The biggest difference of pre-release cards today is that everyone got the same card and you were not allowed to play it in your pre-release deck. The question is, what was the first set to give away a foil stamped pre-release card, and what was that card? This is Episode 13 Stronghold Prerelease, Denver, February 21st, 1998. I don't remember if the Stronghold Prerelease was the first tournament we traveled to from Laramie to Denver, but I feel like it must have been because I was worried about arriving late, so I made sure we got an early start. I had everyone who was going with me up at 4 a.m. for the little more than 2-hour drive into the city and then trying to find the venue. There was a fairly large number of Magic players coming from Laramie, my team plus others. We must have had 2 or 3 vehicles going. In my sedan, which I was borrowing from my mother at the time, I had several members of my new team, including Doug, and I believe a player who frequented the Beer Gardens group by the name of Forrest. I mentioned Forrest in passing in Danecdote number 2, and I'll talk about him in an upcoming Danecdote because he made a copy of my Dandan deck sometime in '98 and had one of the few copies of it prior to my releasing it online in 2016. I have also been put back in contact with him, and he gave me the deck list as it looked in '98. But that's a Danecdote for another time. Anyway, we didn't have GPS navigation in those days, so I had to print out maps and directions from the MapQuest website. Does that still exist? I had also printed out the Stronghold spoiler list from the internet so that we could read and discuss the cards on the drive and how good they were in the sealed environment. Back in those days, Wizards tried to keep spoilers for new sets a tight secret until pre-release day. Only a handful of cards were spoiled by Wizards in the weeks leading up to pre-release to build up hype for the new set. The lists we were reviewing were from Magic players who had played in the Asian and European pre-releases hours earlier and rushed home to put the lists online before the sun rose on North America. Spoilers were generally correct, but we found occasionally that the translations from native languages to English were not perfect. But it was fun discussing the cards, how good they were in limited, and occasionally guessing how the actual card would read in the official English printing. Well, I had made sure we had plenty of time to get there, and we were in fact quite a bit early getting to the tournament venue. So we volunteered to help the tournament organizer put up posters and banners around the tournament hall and prepare for the day. As it got closer to tournament time, we could tell that a lot of players were showing up for the tournament. The line-up registration was out the door. The tournament started about an hour late, and we were told the record turnout meant it would be at least 8 rounds of Swifts, and we would be playing all day. In hindsight, the organizer should have split the tournament in 2 and ran 2 separate pre-releases. As it was going to be a late night. The tournament started late because there were so many players to register, and we must have played 8 or so Swiss rounds before the finals. I don't remember how anyone from Laramie did. I must not have done that well, which was fine because we still must have left the venue after midnight to get some dinner and head home. It was February, so we could have gotten intermountain winter weather, but we were lucky this time and it didn't snow. Still, we did not make it back to the dorms in Laramie until around 4 a.m. on the 22nd. We were up for 24 hours and I was so exhausted on the drive back, I had to put one of the stand-up comedy cassettes my mother had in her car in order to keep me awake. It was an exhausting day of Magic, but fun, and it gave players from Laramie a taste of big city Magic playing. We would travel to Denver many times over the next few years, but those are Magic stories for another time. Today's trivia question is, what was the first set to give away a foil-stamped pre-release card, and what was that card? Answer: the first set to offer a pre-release card for all attendees was Tempest, and the card that everyone received was Dirt Cowl Worm. I missed the Tempest pre-release and didn't get one. The pre-release card for Stronghold was Revenant, which I did have. Wizards of the Coast got a little more creative later, using the date in the foil stamp and printing the chosen card in various languages that Magic cards were not normally printed in. And they eventually started printing them in foil. I have a tiny story about the Lightning Dragon pre-release card, but I will save that for a miscellany video because it was short and I was not directly involved. I had a good collection of these pre-release cards, and as collector pieces, I wish I had kept them. But I'm a player first and foremost, and they were never doing much for me in that regard. Thank you for joining me for this episode. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe.